Hi guys, welcome to the Honest Perfume Reviewer. My name is Kiki. I review fragrances in a very honest way. I don't accept any free bottles. I'm not sponsored. I mean, I would let myself be sponsored if anyone wanted to give me free jewelry or something like that, but I will not accept any sponsorship or money or free gifts from the perfume industry, because I think it's really, really hard to stay objective. And I appreciate these kind of reviewers so much that you can tell that there's no bias. They've just spent their own money and they just want to share. I'm just in this because I love to talk about fragrance. I love to hear, your feedback and comments, and also just kind of share my ideas on not overspending, you getting value for money, just to kind of share the way I think to kind of fight that urge to buy more fragrances. And I think there's something really sort of unhealthy about, clinging to things too much and getting too attached. After all, these are only material things, and there's only so much time, so many days, and so much skin, so that it's not possible really to wear, if you have, say, 700 fragrances in your collection. I mean, even if the bottles were this small, it would still be kind of hard to use them. And that's kind of what they're for. And I can't see all these perfumes just standing there. So I try to keep my collection small. I have around 50 bottles. I have about the same amount of decants and then maybe like 20 or so travel size perfumes as well. Recently, I just realized how fond I am of the note galbanum or galbanum. I'm not quite sure the pronunciation there. And I kind of looked into a little bit what it was, and I just brought the fragrances out that have this note. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I kind of look for it in fragrances too. It's not that common, I think, in the fragrances that come out sort of today. A lot of these fragrances are ones that have been out for a while, but there are also some new things that I'd like to mention. I don't like all galbanum fragrances, and I'll tell you a little bit about a few that I don't like so much, or at least one here that I don't like so much. And I've been listening to a little bit of other reviewers recommend galbanum fragrances, and some of them I don't. I think it's a little bit more common maybe in masculine kind of vintage fragrances. And if you'd like to know more about that type of fragrance, I recommend you to check out this guy called Ramsey. He has a video that's called "This Is Not a Top 10 Galbanum Fragrance Video," I think, or something like that. And this guy is a real professor when it comes to fragrance. He knows a lot. He's got an incredible collection. I find, unfortunately, that he often recommends things that are really hard to find. I mean, I guess fragrances were better back in the day, and I know one of my best friends says the same thing. She's been in fragrance for so long, and she's just kind of been watching perfumes get more and more watered down because of like new regulations and things like that. And I really don't have an opinion about this. I have one of my favorite fragrances from like when I was young on this little list of, it's not really a list, but my little compilation, whatever. And this is Safari from Ralph Lauren, which is beautiful floral, kind of has a vanillic kind of base. This is really kind of 80s and 90s kind of perfume. And it has galbanum in the opening. And it's just, but I mean, this kind of fragrance wouldn't really come out today. This is not the kind of fragrance that sells. I find that the things that come out are usually like, they're rose fragrances, they're oriental fragrances, they're freshies, gourmands. I mean, there's all kinds of things coming out, of course, but like this particular style, not so much today. And I have a few more. Well, why don't we take those first? I think actually Ramsey mentioned this one. This is actually a vintage mini of Musta Cartier, the Parfum concentration, and this has, I don't know if it's intact because I can't really compare it with any memory of mine from this particular fragrance, but I put it on here a while ago. And to me, it smells like it's really dated, but at the same time, it's really good. But it definitely has that bit. So, okay, so what is galbanum? It's like a bitterish resin that comes from a plant. So it's not a tree resin. It more comes from like the stems of this special plant, and they grow naturally, I think, best in Iran. But after the war, like the Iran-Iraq war, they've been getting, I think, harvesting galbanum from other places. And those who are really into perfumery, kind of like I am now, could really notice the difference in the quality. So I guess the best galbanum resin comes from Iran, and not so much anymore. But maybe this little bottle has Iranian galbanum. I mean, this is really pretty. It's just pretty, it's pretty sharp, and I don't think it's because of the galbanum. I think it's because of like other white florals like hyacinth and lily of the valley, and those kind of notes, making it maybe a little bit ladylike. But it also has like some ambery facets to it, kind of like, I was going to take these in a special order, but no, I didn't do that. Kind of like the same kind of structure as MDCI's Chypre Palatin. This is, and I guess galbanum has played a big role in chypres, and I find people describing chypres in so many different ways. The first way I learned about a chypre was that a chypre is a fragrance that has kind of the following structure: bergamot or other citruses in the top, florals in the middle, and then oak, moss, and other base notes in the base. But now I just heard this video where Roja Dove was explaining that like chypres are like dry fragrances, like opposed to sweet fragrances. And what characterizes them is like woody and mossy notes. He didn't mention anything about florals or citruses. So I'm not really sure. And it doesn't really matter. I don't know about these, putting them into different categories. This fragrance, to me, is a 10 out of 10. I've talked about this before, and I didn't even know that it was the galbanum, and maybe it plays one role, but it's definitely not the whole experience. Galbanum is like typically used as a top note, but there are also exceptions in my little list here, the ones I'm going to talk about, where galbanum is a mid note, and also where galbanum is used as a base note. And I'm not quite sure of the difference, if it's a difference in quality of the actual raw ingredient, or if it's just kind of a way that they have, they want a fragrance to kind of linger in the background or be like a center in a fragrance, or if it's just kind of give it a special opening. But in this one, definitely galbanum is an opening note, top note. There's definitely some kind of similarity with Musta Cartier. This one has more fruity notes, though. It has like fruity notes, floral notes, and like a very oriental ambery base with some animalic touches as well. It has something called costus, which is if you use it too much, it can like really ruin a fragrance, but if you use just a little, it gives a real depth to it. It has kind of an animalic quality to it, and some say that it smells like unwashed hair, or like a little bit like body odor maybe, or cat's fur or something like that. This also has castoreum, which is a very animalic note. It has leather, which is also animalic. But then in the top, it's like it has this galbanum and kind of aldehydic opening. So it's a little bit soapy as well. It has all these things at the same time. This is just a real experience. It is so layered. There's so much in here. This is a must try. I really, really enjoy both the opening, and I love the dry down. The performance is incredible. The performance of Safari from Ralph Lauren is also incredible. This is really powdery, and this, I always get compliments for this. I've worn this. I've been through bottles and bottles of this for the last like 40 years maybe. No, not 40 years, like 30 years maybe. And I've always come back to it. And it's a real safe grab because I know, but you have to wait 30 minutes at least for it to dry down and become beautiful. The opening a little bit sharp. Galbanum is definitely in there. Another fragrance that I find to be not so much spoken about, but is one of my favorites from Xerjoff, is Dhajala. And I think maybe the galbanum plays a big important role here, or that explains why I like it so much. It's kind of a green amber, and I have one more green amber I'm going to talk about in a minute. This is more, I wouldn't call this like a typical amber, but it is a little bit resinous, but it's mostly floral, And then it has that opening where galbanum plays a part. And it also has orange, like a citrus note in the top, orange and orange blossom, and bergamot. Pink pepper, rose, and jasmine in the mid, amber, resin, vanilla, and musk in the base. This is really good. And now that we're talking about ambers, a fragrance that I mentioned when I was on vacation in November, I went to the Canary Islands, and I wore this, and it is Ambra Calabria. I just had this little decant from Nishane, Turkish house, and I thought it was so darn beautiful. I would have guessed that this also has ambergris, but I don't think it does. Let's see if I wrote down the notes here. No ambergris, but it does have galbanum in the top, in the notes, in the top, and green leaves and bergamot, so it's quite green. I was so disappointed in this fragrance though, because down there, I could hardly smell it after 5 minutes after I sprayed it, basically it was like gone. So I think temperature makes a huge difference, because when I tried it on last night, I just been to the gym, I put it on, and just kind of while I was it lingered forever on my skin. It was just beautiful. I could really, it was puffing. I was, I was smelling myself, and I thought it's so pretty with this ambery vanillic base combined with this green top. I almost want a bottle. These little drops that I have, I went through this much during that week when I went to the Canary Islands, because I just basically, I showered myself. I thought maybe I'll smell it now, and I just kept spraying and spraying, and it was just gone. It just evaporated. I don't know. At least I couldn't smell it down there, but now I can really smell it. It's quite strong even. I don't know. Have you had this experience with fragrances that they can perform so differently, like in hot and cold weather? Because I've never experienced it this different, and it wasn't even that hot there. Say it was like 28 degrees Celsius, which, I guess that is pretty hot. 26 to 28. And now it's like pretty crisp here. It's like between 7 and 10 maybe degrees Celsius. Spring is here. It's really, really beautiful. Highly, highly recommend. But make sure that you try it on your skin first, because it might not perform on you. And relative to the climate that you're in. I know that people around the world are kind of like sharing experiences about fragrance, and like the top note, she's from Australia, so we're living in completely different ends of the globe. Things that work there might not work here very well, or for a very, very short time at least. Okay, so that was Ambra Calabria from Nishane. Really, really nice fragrance. And I have Infusion Iris. This is a staple in my collection. I love this. This is a beautiful fragrance. And I'll just talk about my other Iris fragrance at the same time, because these are kind of these could kind of replace each other. I don't know if you would need both. I think that Chanel No. 19 Poudré is slightly better and more interesting. It's just more powdery. And it has I have it here, but since kind of earlier today. The galbanum, the opening is just beautiful in this one, but so is this. This is a little bit more like clean linen, I think. I'm just going to put it, just kind of remind myself. And here the versions are, if you get the one from 2010, it's completely different. I think this is the 2015 version. It's just so pretty. This is I've let people that are not so into fragrance smell this, and they think it's really relaxing and kind of like a meditation kind of fragrance. It's just so easy to wear. It's just calmness in a bottle. It's fresh. It's kind of a right out of the shower kind of fragrance. It's just, I love this fragrance. So good. I'll always have this in my collection. And this one too, I was so hooked on this last year. I wore it all the time, and then I kind of forgot to wear it. So I was so happy today when I started wearing it again. I'm just going to add a little more where I sprayed it before. It's so, let's see what this has. In the base, it has vetiver, musk, and tonka. So it's kind of like a little bit of there's that little sweetness in the background. And the galbanum, I think it's just so pretty. And it has neroli. I don't usually like neroli fragrances, but in this composition, it's just incredible. I love it. It was created by Jack Polge, and I don't know if Olivier and Jack are I mean, what the relationship is between them. Is it father and son? Are they brothers? Is it his uncle? I'm not sure. I'm going to research that for another time because I'm really interested in all these kind of stuff. Let's see. Oh, and there's another fragrance too that Ramsey mentioned that I realized I had a sample of that also has like a galbanum note, and it is Opus 7 from Amouage. It's called also, it has a name, it's from the library collection. It's called Opus 7 Reckless Leather. And this has, this fragrance is like, I have it here. I kind of, when I'm preparing these videos, I kind of put one here, and I'm just kind of, you know, comparing them a little bit. This is like very much Amouage kind of notes. Cypriol oil, olibanum, nutmeg, patchouli, ambergris, costus, leather, and it has galbanum as well. But to me, this is like a really green and grassy fragrance, kind of in a non-perfumey kind of way. Like, I don't know when I would wear this because I think it's like, I mean, it really has like focus on the greenness and more on the greenness I think, than the actual leather. So this Reckless Leather, or Opus 7, was created by Alberto Morillas for Amouage, and it is really, really different from like his line Maison. I talked about that a few videos ago, and it's kind of, a lot of people think it's kind of like a bridge, right on the bridge between like designer fragrances and niche, like really easy to wear, people-pleasing fragrances. And this is the exact opposite. This is like hayish, grassy, super green, a little smoky from the olibanum, a little spicy. It's just, I mean, your average person on the street would never wear this, I don't think. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like it. I find it interesting, but I don't think I would ever choose this. I think I would rather have a bottle from Maison actually, like Ambre Magique maybe. Anyway, that was that one. And I'd just like to mention a few other fragrances that have the note of galbanum. And one of them is French Lover from Frederic Malle. And this is Ramsey's like favorite combination with galbanum, that perfumes that feature both galbanum and angelica in the same fragrance. And I mean, the way he was talking about it made me feel like I really need to go out and smell French Lover from Frederic Malle and kind of experience this combination. And I'd love to try what he was talking about. So galbanum is also featured in Iris Silver Mist from Serge Lutens, which last time when I tried it, I really didn't like it at all. I found it to be like really damp and earthy, and was like overdosed on earthy notes, like carrot seed type notes. And I really can't recommend it, especially not if you don't like those kind of notes. If you don't like oak moss, you might not like Iris Silver Mist. But Ramsey was talking about it as well, and he says it's super beautiful, but I think he has definitely what you would call an acquired taste, more so than myself, because he's been in this business for a long time. His collection is like, consists of like 650 bottles, and many of them are, you know, like fragrances that he's really like hunted down and probably paid a lot of money for, because they're like decades old and they have, you know, they're from the right batch. And he often like turns his bottles upside down and like reads, make sure you're getting the one, you know, marked like this, or get the EDT and not the EDP because they're like way different, things like that. He also mentioned Dryad from Papillon, and I think that's a really interesting house. So these are fragrances that I'm going to go out and smell. That's why I'm kind of mentioning them to you guys too. Fragrances that I know already that he mentioned and that I really like are Oceania from Roja. And the interesting thing there is that galbanum there is used in the base. Another one is Iris Malikhân and Nightclubbing. And Iris Malikhân is from Maison Crivelli, and Nightclubbing is from Celine. And I'll start with Oceania. I think it's a super, super beautiful summer fragrance that has both like marine notes, citruses, florals, and I didn't even know it had galbanum, but there's something about this fragrance. It has ambergris, and I talked about it in my video about ambergris a couple days ago. And this fragrance, this kind of explains, I think, why I like it, because I think I love that little, you know, hint of something bitter in fragrance. And I think I like it in food as well. So, and Iris Malikhân, I'm really surprised though, because that's kind of a vanillic iris kind of fragrance with a little bit of a gourmand feeling, kind of like, what was I thinking? Lost Alice, a little bit, kind of that kind of feeling, kind of milky or something. I haven't smelled that in a long time, so I need to go back and do it. I think it might have some cinnamon in there. Then he also mentioned a few other fragrances that I don't know so well, Oligarch and Vetiver from Roja, and I think that also like feature galbanum in the base. Oh, here's one that I also think probably has galbanum, although it only says green notes, and it's an old favorite of mine that is continued called Private Collection from Estée Lauder. It comes in this frosted, transparent bottle with a gold cap. And they had it. They just discontinued it like a few years ago. It was like 3 years ago. I could have bought a bottle, but I was too late. They took it away. So I'm kind of like on the hunt for one. And I'm pretty sure it has galbanum because the opening reminds me a little bit of the Safari opening. So, and Nightclubbing is a fragrance that I would have not guessed had the note of galbanum. Nightclubbing smells like, strangely enough, it's like an iris, beautiful iris fragrance that reminds me a little bit of like when smoking used to be allowed inside, like when I would go clubbing when I was younger and smoking was allowed in the bars and stuff. At the same time, it's still really beautiful. You must go in and try it because it's really hard to explain. But there I was surprised to see that it actually had galbanum. And then he also mentioned a terrible fragrance that I have tried, and it is a Snowy Owl. And I think, is it Snowy Owl from Zoologist? I think so. It's combined with like mint, calogne, which is like I think it's kind of like a melon, watery kind of fragrance note. It smells wet and damp and earthy, and I thought it was quite horrible. I just thought it was interesting to see like that there are, what types of fragrances galbanum typically is used in. But I definitely need to try more fragrances that have this note, and especially the combination with Angelica. I'm really curious to find out what that smells like because I trust this guy. He knows what he's talking about. I might not have the same taste. He's got a lot of like classic, masculine or fragrances that are marketed towards men, but he definitely also does cross the line. He doesn't care if it says, woman or man. He mentioned this old classic Isatis from, where is it from? Givenchy, maybe? Isatis. I can't remember the house, but it's a fragrance that was really popular when I was young. And I guess that it also has galbanum. I'll just try it and see if I can find a friend that might have a bottle still. That would be fun. Do you have a favorite galbanum fragrance? Please let me know. I'd love to try some new things with this, with this note in it. Thanks for today, guys.